Have you ever been in a room of a lot of people, whether they were strangers or friends or family, and felt all isolated and alone? You have this deep feeling of loneliness, that you don't belong, that people don't get you, that they're not interested in you, and there's nothing you can do. Maybe you've tried a lot of ways to change yourself, to make yourself like the people that you're around, to try to be more like them. And that just makes you feel worse, because that's really common when we're around people that are, they could be preoccupied. They could have other things that are calling for all their attention, or discussions, or people have all kinds of reasons for not really connecting to themselves, and of course connecting to their loved ones. And sometimes we have to be the leader in our relationships, meaning usually people's behavior is not personal. It's really not personal. And just like your behavior, maybe you're shy, or maybe you're afraid to say or do the wrong thing, and that's really not necessarily about the other people. It could be really mostly about you trying to get things right, or trying to be acceptable, or trying to be good enough, or all these things that have us do that that control our behavior, that we're not even aware of. It's like we're on automatic, and we're just reacting to our environment, trying to adjust to the moods, or the type of people that we're around. And you could say there's really nothing maybe wrong with that, except for if you're doing it kind of automatically or for all the wrong reasons. If you're trying to be somebody that you're not, just so that you can be around people, that can cause a lot of internal conflict. That can cause a lot of anxiety, actually. And when we're really kind of anxious, we're doing something we shouldn't be doing, trying to please people that are never going to be pleased, or trying to make people happy that are really unhappy, or people that maybe aren't really into us, that we're trying to make them into us. That what that causes is an unease inside. And people can sense when other people are being inauthentic or people pleasing. They can sense that. And maybe that has them become more distant. And ideally, we wouldn't be trying to get people who aren't into us to be into us. you know, I only speak about this because that's what I did most of my life. I always seemed to kind of pick people that really weren't into me and tried to get them to be, want to have conversations with me, want to spend time with me, want to go out with me. And, you could take on the possibility that, you're a picker, or you're, the kind of people that you try to connect to, that it's not getting you the kind of relationships that you want. And there's always kind of a reason for that. Like sometimes our parents, if you're unlucky enough to have parents that really didn't get along, then you kind of see that those impressions are placed upon you. And you can see the dynamic, so if you have parents that really don't resonate with each other. Like they're different in ways that are like friction. It's like sandpaper, and they really aren't made for each other. And for some reason they got together, and then they started having children, and then they tried to do the right thing, and what they thought was the right thing, and stay together. And we if you're born into a dynamic like that with your parents, that you get exposed to all the dysfunctional ways to try to get somebody who doesn't like you to like you from your parents. And we see it some in television, but not really. That's kind of part of the confusion, is that we see people on television and they seem to, for the most part, get along together, or they work through conflicts. But in real life, some people get together that really aren't made for each other. And then there's all this underlying conflict, and you could say incompatibility, that they're always adjusting to. And if you're being raised in that, then you may just take on automatically that that's what relationships are like. And the truth is, that isn't what all relationships are like. And we actually ultimately have control if we're picking somebody that really doesn't like us and trying to get them to like us for some reason. You may find that you have an attraction to people that really don't resonate with you, and then you you turn yourself into a pretzel to try to get them to throw you a bone. And as you age and you get older, and maybe you've already had a lot of these experiences, that you realize, wow, I'm the common denominator in this dynamic, being around people that really aren't that into me. And so, and that doesn't feel good. And you don't want to do that anymore, because you could spend half of your life thinking or taking it personally that dynamic has something to do with you personally. Like there's something about you that you have to change. There's something about you that you have to make acceptable to these people that you're around that don't really resonate with you. That can cause a lot of pain, that can cause a lot of internal conflict, and it creates loneliness, because you can't ultimately keep surrounding yourself around people that really don't resonate with you. I mean, that's usually where loneliness comes from, is we're around other people, but we don't really feel connected to them. And or we've had losses of people that we really loved. They passed away, or they moved away, or we had a pet pass away. We've had a loss of some kind, and maybe we're still grieving. And grief comes in all kinds of different forms. Sometimes it doesn't take very long before somebody else comes along and you have another companion. And sometimes it does take a long time. And there's something about honoring that process and trusting the process and waiting for people that you resonate with to come along, and to not settle for somebody that isn't into you. So if we settle for people that aren't into us, that really does, I believe, and what I found to be true, because I have experienced a lot of loneliness in my life with a lot of my own unique characteristics and just ways of being and sensitivities. So wherever it is that we learned to try to get people who aren't into us to be into us, is that when we start realizing this, we learn about this, what's causing this feeling of loneliness, of not belonging, that we become more responsible to be paying attention to what we're doing and the kind of people that we are around. Because that loneliness is an internal nudging that is saying that we're doing something, we're wanting something from something outside of ourselves to make us feel good or make us feel like we fit in or we belong or people want to be around us, that we're good enough, whatever those things are. And so that loneliness, when we put ourselves around people who aren't into us, is that it really is a reflection, especially if it's common, if it's a common experience of your life. It's a reflection of you not wanting you. I mean, that's what I found. I was always trying to make myself palatable to people that I didn't resonate with. They didn't resonate with me. I mean, if you don't resonate with someone, guess what? They don't resonate with you. And you cannot change the fundamental aspects of who you are, like your core values and just unique qualities about you that isn't resonating with this other person. And I know it's kind of a tough concept to comprehend. I mean, it doesn't mean you can't be friends, but when you really want a deep connection, you want to be understood by this person. You want to get to know the person. You want to understand them. There needs to be some kind of mutual resonance that creates a reciprocal give and take, a reciprocal conversation, a reciprocal interest. And those are some of the first things that we should be looking for when we're getting new friends, we're going new places, we're having to start over, or we're looking to date someone. Is there this mutual reciprocal interest, this reciprocal resonance? Because I have come to find out, and I do believe that these dynamics that are in relationships, if we could see into the future, what happens when we try to change our core self to get somebody to like us, that never works out. It never works out. So this loneliness is from really wanting something. It comes from two things. It's from wanting something other than what you have right now, which right now you might just have yourself to share your love with and your interest and your time with. But the other one, this other loneliness, comes from, well, from being around people that are not into us, and also from us not being interested in ourselves. And so if you want to see the level that you can become interested in another person, you want to take a look at the level of interest that you have in getting yourself and understanding yourself and connecting to yourself and the things that are important to you. And when you learn to ask yourself these questions, like, what's important to me? Is honesty important to me? People keeping their promises, people being kind, people being generous, what are those things, to maybe write those things down on a list so you could remember, oh, these are really important to me. And do a checkoff list of the people in your life that you think, that you want to spend time with. And then when you do, you leave and you just feel horrible. You feel lonely. And you don't understand what's causing that because you've spent some time together, or maybe went and saw a movie or something like that, or went for a walk in the park and something's just missing there. So you can make a list about these things and see if there's some common denominator, like you're into them, but they're not into you. You ask them questions, but they don't ask you questions. So this this journey of getting to know what's important to you, getting to know yourself, the more you do this, the more you take the time to connect with yourself, to check in with yourself after you spent time with someone, before you go to spend time with someone. If you get a really bad feeling, take a minute and say, well, what's going on? Why am I feeling this way? What am I worried about? Or if you have a really good feeling about going to spend some time with someone, what is it about that relationship that you really like? And you kind of get that when you start seeing relationships a little differently, that they're just not random, that there's dynamics between two people that you can see and that you can be aware of. And all relationships have limitations. But if you're spending time with people and then you're feeling really lonely afterwards, that's kind of telling you that either you're doing things when you're around those people where you're trying to be somebody that you're not, or you just don't have enough things in common, or there's just not the resonance there. And you're not going to be able to change that. I at least in my research of trying to get people to like me who or resonate with me when we really didn't. So I don't do that anymore because it just feels horrible, especially now that I know the difference. So what there is to say about not being with yourself, the aspect of self-abandonment and the loneliness that that could cause, meaning you're more interested in what people think about you or trying to get people who don't like you to like you, that's a form of self-abandonment. And that's a certain level of misery, of emptiness, of loneliness, and maybe even heartbreak for yourself. And reconnecting to yourself does take something. It really does, because then you're responsible for what you're feeling. When we say, oh, people don't like me and I've done this and that and this and that to make the person like me and they just don't like me, they're not a very nice person, then we blame them for how we're feeling. You know, it's a story we make up, I guess, so we can feel bad about the people that we choose in our life. And the truth is, we are choosing them. And the truth is, we are making up the stories about how they act around us or what they're doing or what they're saying or how they say it. And we're responsible for the way that we're acting and what we're doing. And what I know to be true from being in a place where I used to be very, very codependent, and I turned myself into a pretzel for every single relationship I had. I was not authentic in relationships. And when I started taking this journey and I started getting to where I couldn't tolerate that kind of loneliness, that kind of emptiness, that kind of confusion, that I tried so hard to make relationships work. And what I found is that they don't work when we try to control how somebody feels about us, or if we're being somebody that we're really not. And so it is a journey. And most people don't make change unless they're experiencing a lot of pain, a lot of loneliness. You could say a lot of misery or a lot of confusion in the area of relationship dynamics. So what I found is that when I started changing and I started healing and didn't want to be in dysfunctional relationship dynamics anymore, that I started caring for myself. I started listening and noticing what I was doing, and I started healing those things, and I stopped doing those things. And a lot of the dysfunctional relationships I had, they faded away. They ended. Some people just didn't like it straight out, and other people, there just wasn't enough to make it stick. And I had to be okay with that. And I had to be in that loneliness. I had to be in that space being lonely, but I wasn't willing to be inauthentic anymore. So I spent most of the time being with myself and searching for things that brought me joy. And I started walking the beaches in the Pacific Northwest, and I offered all my loneliness to the ocean. And then next thing I knew, beautiful rocks washed up at my feet. And then I started taking pictures of them. And then the picture that's in this video is a picture of an agate that I shined a light through. And I captured a bunch of these beautiful photos. And they brought me such joy, being with low tides and beautiful rocks and beautiful sea life and the splashing waves and the beautiful sunsets and the birds. And it brought me so much joy. And so I just took a journey for a couple years within myself to find the things that brought me joy, because I never got them from trying to get a person who didn't like me to like me, to try to get a person who wasn't into me, to try to change myself, to be palatable for my environment, for the community I lived in. And I wasn't maliciously trying to be inauthentic. I was just, I think that's what a lot of people do. And then it leads to all this loneliness and this anxiety, and we don't even know who we are. So I guess I'm just sharing this personal element because it was one of my biggest sources of pain. And I don't have that anymore. I've figured all these things that are so true about me, and now I'm my unbridled self. I'm just authentically myself. And I filled up, and it did take a couple years. And the friends that I have now, they know who I am, and they love me just as I am. I don't have to be something other than myself. And I feel so much better inside, and I don't feel lonely anymore. And I filled up with all that joy and all that being myself, that now I have authentic love to share, and it just spills over to share my love, my joy, my wholeness, my happiness, my wisdom, my life experiences and my wisdom, to be a safe harbor for people in the stormy times of their life, to come into this harbor where we're going to get you. I'm going to get you. I'm going to care about you. I want you to be a part of this community. I want you to be able to be yourself. And it really starts with authenticity with ourselves. It's really an inside job. And I can say it's absolutely worth it. It is so worth it, because I have joy and fullness inside of me that belongs to me. I chose it. I created it. I can control it. And I don't need to be someone that I'm not ever, ever again. And there is so much power and freedom in this. And that's what I wish for everyone. So don't do anything desperate when you're lonely. Take a journey to find yourself and embrace yourself, and find something in your life, even if it's new, even if you have to experiment, that would bring you some joy, just some moments of joy, and see how that feels. Like you chose it, you did it. You don't need to do it with someone else. There's plenty of things. Like when I walked on the beach, I didn't do it with someone else. I did it by myself, because I'm kind of a person that spent a lot of my time alone. But there's so many ways that you can fill yourself up. And it's really a journey to wholeness. I've really enjoyed talking to you today. I look forward to speaking with you in the next video. And until then, take good care.